week here, so most of us have had a chance to witness firsthand how that has been a real part of this festival. But now we're going to have a chance to go more in depth, bringing back Andre Soares, who is the environmental program designer for the whole Boom Festival. And Andre is a natural builder, permaculture designer, and educator, and co-founder of Ecocentro IPEC, one of the most relevant permaculture centers in Latin America. So please put your hands together in welcoming back to the stage Andre Soares.
Thank you. So I didn't choose the name for this presentation. Somehow now it sounds a little bit overly ambitious, since reality is a matter of opinion. So keep it real. I mean, I can do it with my reality, but I'm responsible in Boom Festival to organize a series of events that happen previous to the big event. A series of gatherings of people. They have to get together. They have to think ahead what they're going to do. They have to execute what they think and plan. And we often, during this process, ask ourselves a question that at the end of Boom now, I think some of you all might be asking. I'm sure some people would be on their coming down of the party by now. And sometimes we ask that question, what's the point? What is the point? Is it worth it? I mean, all this, what's the point? Why do we do it? And you're going to find an answer for that. Every time we ask, we're going to resound some kind of answer somewhere. And it might be a different answer here and there, and I'm going to try to make 3 points in this brief time that we just have to put out this seed that you're going to take out of here. I'm going to try to make just some 3 basic points that for me are the real thing, in here. The first thing about the point is the experience. You all came here, we all came here for a bracket in time. We came here and we had an experience. We experienced something. Many people have experienced great things. Many people have been pushed and poked in different ways from outside and from the inside out. And whatever the experience they chose to have, they had it. Some may have had other types of experiences that are not so learning. Maybe they're not so much of the outside learning type. But I'm sure that some people are still in the process of now the inside change, the inside learning that comes from the experience. So what we try to do is to create a space for an experience. That's the first point of why we do it. It's a space, just somewhere in this planet, somewhere there has to be a space that we can gather together art and nature and water and people and beauty and music and let it free. Let it express itself. There has to be a place for that. So this is the place for us. This is the place that we chose, that somehow things aligned that it would happen here. And that experience in itself is a good point for that, because if people that go through that experience can effect some kind of change, some kind of advancement in this evolutionary cycle that we are in, that was worth it. But was it really? How do we know if the experience that we are creating, so much in the solid world, but also in other dimensions, possibly, how do we know that we can continue with that without going backwards in this journey that we're supposed to be engaged in? How do we know that? And that's where comes the keeping real thing for us, is that there are some basic things that need to be taken care of. And these are not the things that we're doing here just to look nice or to look good or to appear to be with the trend of the thought. They're not these things. These things that we work on, the basic necessities, like self-expression, or the expression of the mind. We put people together to create some foundation for your experience. This foundation of people and of structures has to be there so that you can have that outer experience. There is no point, and you should not accept anymore. You should not accept anymore that even though you have a transcendental experience in a gathering like that, you should not accept anything less than the basic needs that a human have. But at the same time, there is a challenge for that. We're talking about water, we're talking about food, we're talking about where you sleep and how you are protected. We're talking about all the energy that goes around the things that you need for your experience. And we're talking about all the results of this experience and all the things that we all leave behind. These things need to be taken care of. If we're going to create free cultural spaces, more than the very few that we already have, and we do need more of those, definitely, we will need to get down to the basics in the first place, because we can get enlightened and we can advance and we can evolve our consciousness, but our shit has to stop getting to the clean water. We cannot accept that anymore. It's basic. It's where we started. It's where we started this journey that we are now completing 10 years in bringing these basic ideas to boom. One of the things was to use more of what's under our feet. After all, the whole world is based on mining. The whole world is based on taking things from the crust of the earth and spreading all over the world indiscriminately and convincing you and convincing all of us that we need those things. So why don't we start then from what's under our feet to build what we need? It's one of those basic questions that we need to meet. And in Boom, we have experimented with that. And sometimes we have to make compromise. Sometimes beauty comes first. And sometimes things can gel in some functional element that can be beautiful and can perform a function, can realize that basic necessity. We've been developing these toilets that you used this week since 2006. And every year, there's another detail that needs to be fine-tuned. Every year gets a little bit better, and it still haven't got there. It's still not there. Still more 2 years to work on it, to fine-tune details. But it is getting better. And that is basic. That's what I want to leave very clear here, is that for your experience to be complete, for your experience to be possible to open up the doors that you wanted to open to yourself, those basic things need to be resolved. It doesn't make much sense to be illuminated by night and shit in formaldehyde by morning. Doesn't make much sense. I haven't found, and please help me if you know any enlightened being that can adjust these things. Especially when we do have solutions, especially when the solution is that simple. It's that basic. Look after the bottom line. There's nothing more bottom line than that. So we also expanded in these years in many of these areas that I was talking about: food, water, energy, waste control. But obviously we couldn't expect to feed 40,000 people from the gardens that we have here. They're very voracious people, very hungry, as we can see by the lines in the restaurant zone. But we could put out maybe a message then, that food is here. This is a great food production area. This is agricultural zone here. This is where food can be grown in large quantities. We just need to think and discuss a little bit more how we do it, and maybe we can get to the results that we're expecting, which shouldn't be anything less than 100%. So some of the results that we already have for this year, I don't know if it's clear there to see these details, but it's in the news, in the Dharma Dragon, if you got one already. We have managed to advance on these things. There is a certain rationale in there, but I personally, in terms of my real, I'm not much into that corporate talk of carbon credits and compensation for our bad deeds. You know, it's less of something bad is not necessarily good. So reducing impact is not good enough. Reducing impact is just a way of, okay, we will keep on going, justifying what we do, and paint some colors in this, and go ahead trying to keep everything as it is. And now we are more self-justified. Don't know if I make sense with that, but if we look at what we really need to do, is that we need to invert impact. We cannot simply do less of a bad thing. We have to do the good thing. We have to gather here, we have to put here, we have to show that people coming here can make this place better. This small space. Otherwise, what's the point? Otherwise, what was the point of the experience if we didn't contribute to make something better? So these are the aspects of that we reach for, because we're still in the very bottom line of this. There's so much to progress in terms of boom. There's such a long journey ahead. So many things before we can get to the fine aspects of human coexistence. You know, but we have that. We have the technology. It's available. We got the knowledge. It's available. There is still resources to build these things. It's still there to build these things so that we can make a transition to a different reality, a reality that we need to learn now how to live with. So that's another point in terms of why the festival. It's a way somehow to rehearse the future. Somehow we can here have an experience of what it is, a world where we try to be comfortable with less of what we used to. Some people think, wow, this is a disgrace in terms of environmental performance. But I can tell you, all of you have used around 50 liters of water per day in Boom, which sounds like a lot. 50 liters of water per day per person sounds like a lot, and it is a lot of water. But when you're back in town, you're using around 300 liters per person per day. So here we managed to cut to 1/6 the water that we all use. Yeah, well, I couldn't have showers of 2 hours, and I had to go to the showers twice because there was times. What an injustice to cut shower times. But it wasn't actually. You collaborated very well. It wasn't easy after the second and third day. It wasn't that easy. We had to negotiate shower closing times. We had to go there and do a bit of a talk to the line people. And we had to be also complacent with times. We couldn't be so Germanic in closing the tap. But we tried to be as Germanic as possible in the opening times. But this, sometimes a small change in a process can create huge, enormous benefits. And that was the case with the shower times this year. So I hope the next year, which in Boom a year is 2, I hope the next year it's even easier to close the showers. But people were incredibly understanding. And that's also a new thing. That's something that we've learned. We've learned to live because we were adapted to a certain mode of relating to you. And we had to readapt. And every year is that. Every year we have to reinvent, you know. Completely new people. Completely different. I am not a person this year. And in 2016, if I'm still there, will be another person as well. We all meet again like new people. And this is the learning, and this is the third point of the why we need to do a festival. It's because we do need to adapt to this new reality. Even if it's slightly or maybe a lot different to every individual, there are certain aspects of that reality that are bottom line, and they are common to all of us. And these common aspects have to be addressed, and soon. And the last point then is action. You know, in the first day we had a discussion here, also in the Liminal Village, and I found myself saying something which I usually do because I don't prepare very much to speak, and then I sometimes say things that I have to think again. But it's just about action, you know. I've been thinking about that the whole Boom, that my experience was that. How do we express this experience then? How do you bring out all these discoveries that you had this week? How do you put out all that amazing wealth of thoughts?
How would you experience?
All right, thank you. It's Boom. That's a good thing here. You get a lot of hugs. Never enough. No. We can do that after. So, at the end, there is a vision. At the end, there is a vision. It might vary to each one of us. And if we're going to try to put together this vision into one package, we're not going to get it. We're not going to get it because we are so unique and the same at the same time. So I've been spending most of my life working with groups of people and trying to convey common vision, to at least to find out what is the common vision. And it's very complex. It is very complex. It's a lifetime thing for all of us to refine that vision together. You know, but that's okay. That's the work. That's what we got to do. As long as the other things can be simply solved as long as the other things are taken care of. We can manage this vision thing, but we all got to decide, what are we going to do? Now you live in Boom, and you're going to land out there. Landing in Boom is one experience. Landing the other side is another experience, right? You have to land out there, and you have to at least make me a promise that you will get out there and just ask yourself one question. How am I making a living? What are you doing? I ask myself almost every day that question. And sometimes I don't like the answer. And a lot of times I do. Sometimes I go into an ego trip because I think I'm such a great shit, you know, or how I make my living. But that's when we can actually reach some bottom line. But it is all about that. It is your time is your life. Your life is your time. What do you do with your time? What do you do with that? Do you sell it? You sell it for what? And for how much? And is it worth it? And if not, do something else with your time. And it's that simple. I know you're going to tell me, and lucky we don't have much time for questions, but maybe 2 questions. But I know you're going to tell me, well, you know, I got to pay the bills, I got to do this, I got to do that. But the bottom line is you have a choice. You have a choice. You're blessed with that. And that's what we're trying to do here in Boom. We're trying to make every day our living as if we are honoring our mothers. You know, just to close in, because I think the theme was very appropriate this year. And it's about what respect are we paying to our mothers, our physical mothers and our divine mother. What are we doing? And what she gave us was our time. So that's what we choose to do here. Every 2 years, we need help of a lot of people to bring it about. But the possibility, you know, the possibility of one beam of light in all of this, if there is that possibility, for me, my real is that it's worth it. That's where I am now. It might not be tomorrow. But now, it was worth it. Maybe we have time for a couple of questions. Huh? Thank you.
Do you do it here on site directly after? Is my specific question.
People live here on site constantly. Some group of people always are on site since a couple of years ago. Obviously, this is a seasonal place, so over winter, there's very few people here, very few things happening here. But if you take into account like things that we were discussing before this week with other people, like energy efficiencies, for instance. Well, yes, we do have generators here eating diesel. But if you look at, for example, how much energy we have generated over 8 months of production for Boom in 4 separate solar stations, where people are living almost entirely from solar power all this time, the whole crew living in solar power. If you look at how much of that energy constructed, you know, and then you take 10 days of voracious energy consumption so that we can indulge ourselves with good music and good sound quality, it's a question to balance. We can calculate that in the conventional ways in terms of kilowatts and amperes. And we probably would be in the positive if we did make that calculation. You know, our 4 solar stations generate something like 50 kilowatts of energy every day. And there's a lot of sun in this country here. And if we do the final accounts, we're probably in the positive. But it's all very relative. You know? It's all very relative, as we say. In the end, it's just a personal decision, a personal choice. The numbers are not going to help us to make the decision if we are ethical or if we are unethical in what we're doing. It's not really. Numbers help to give us a reference on where to go and where we need to shape up our act. But the bottom line is always we have to take into account how much of that experience that I was talking about before, how much is that worth? How much, how many liters of diesel is worth your psychedelic experience? I hope you make it worth.